Well, welcome to our Tuesday devotionals. My name's Dan. I'm one of the pastors on staff here. In fact, I'm the kids pastor on staff here. And in case you don't know, these reading plans are based on our devotion plan that you can find at fivelakes.church/devotions. And today's reading comes from the book of Job, of all things. Job chapter 28, verse 23. And it's not what you'd expect. When everybody thinks about Job, they just think about this terrible life and all this misery and these bad things that happened to him, and then God restoring him at the end because he's faithful and all those kinds of things. And that's all powerful and true, and there are a lot of lessons to be learned there, but there's some other stuff in there, some great Hebrew teaching in there that most people forget about. And that's what we're talking about today, because chapter 28 of Job is all about wisdom. Like the whole chapter is about wisdom. Now, I've heard a ton of definitions about what wisdom is, but my favorite one is one that I heard so long ago that I simply can't remember where I heard it. That'll happen to you if you stick around on the planet long enough. But it's really about the fact that knowledge tends to focus on facts, tends to focus on a correct understanding of something, while wisdom is a little bit different. And here's that definition that I wanted to share with you. Wisdom is the skill in the art of godly living. So I kind of messed that up, so let me say it again. It's skill in the art of godly living. Now, I love that. First of all, it's a skill, meaning you have to practice this thing to get better at it. If you're going to make wise choices in your life, if I'm going to make wise in my life, I've got to work at this. I've got to do something and contribute and hone my skill. But then it also says it's art, meaning there's a nuance to this, right? You got to know when to apply and when to back off. You got to know when to speak and when not to speak. You got to know what to say and what not to say. So a little bit of nuance there. But then the last piece of that is godly living, that you're not going to find wisdom any other place. And that's really what we're talking about in Job chapter 28. So like I mentioned, when people think of Job, they think of all these terrible things that he went through. But the most beautiful thing about Job chapter 28 is not about how to do wisdom. When people think about how to do wisdom or how to make wise choices, they often jump right to Proverbs, and rightfully so. 31 chapters of, look, if you do this, then this is going to happen. It's that kind of wisdom, super practical. But Job chapter 28 is really all about the source of wisdom and the priority of wisdom. Here's what I mean by that. So in the first part of the chapter, he talks about how humans, when they are looking for something valuable, they will go to almost any length. They will dig down into the earth. So he talks about jewels and gold and things that are super, super valuable, and the lengths that we will go to find or to mine for or dig for those things. And then he compares it to wisdom. And he says you really have to dig for wisdom. And this is a good time to pause and just ask you, as I asked myself, how hard am I working at making wise choices? Am I just doing what I think is right? Am I just making my best choice? Or am I really thinking about what is the wise choice? Now, maybe it's in your marriage. Maybe it's in a relationship at work. Maybe it's a financial thing or a career choice or something like that. But you're probably in a place, most of us are in a place of some kind where we need to make a wise choice. And you might be thinking, I don't want to get this wrong. Been there. We've all been there. You might be there right now. And so Job's advice for us is don't just pick the first thing that comes to your head that you think is the right thing to do. Instead, you should mine for, dig for the wise choice. And you might be thinking exactly what I was thinking when I read this, which is, where do you go for that? Like, how do you dig for that? Where does one look for wisdom? And this is where we're going to jump into Job. In verse 20, Job says, but do people know where to find wisdom? Where can they find understanding? It's hidden from the eyes of all humanity. Okay, that sentence right there says you're not just going to stumble into wisdom. It's not going to find you by accident. You have to go looking for it, and that it's hidden. He goes on and says, even the sharp-eyed birds in the sky cannot discover it. But then in verse 23, and this is the verse I want to focus on, he answers the question by saying this: God alone understands the way to wisdom. He knows where it can be found. How good is that? Right? Job is saying that wisdom can't be found by reading more books, knowing obscure facts, by taking more classes, or even by surviving, like living more life. A lot of people think the older you get, the more wise you become. Not necessarily true. Not necessarily true. So he says that God alone knows the way to wisdom. Jesus said he is the way, the truth, and the life. So let me just give you the bottom line that I pulled out of this verse that I hope is helpful to you. When you have a choice to make, when I have a choice to make, when I want to know not just what can I say or do, or what do I want to say or do, or what can I get away with, like legally, and not get caught or whatever. So, but the real question has to be this: what is the wise thing to do? Not even what is the right thing to do. Like when I give advice to young dads or young husbands about being married, I often make the joke that you can be right or you can be married. You get to pick. Now, of course, it's a joke and those aren't mutually exclusive, but it does kind of connect to the idea that I don't always need to say what's in my head. I need to be wise about what's in my head. I don't always need to do what I think is best. I need to be wise. So, what is the wise thing to do? According to Job, there's only one place, there's only one person, there's only one mountain to dig under where you're going to find wisdom. It has more to do with who holds the wisdom than anything else. Turns out it really is about who you know. God alone understands the way to wisdom. He knows where it can be found. Thanks for joining us today.